Greetings guys, and welcome back to another video. Now today we're not up in the air, we're not flying around doing a flight review, we're on the ground here in Adelaide. As today's video is going to be about the Qantas cancellation process. As recently I had a flight which was delayed and then eventually cancelled, which left me stranded in Sydney overnight, where I had to fork out money for a hotel and go through the whole claims process a few days later. But the reason I'm putting this video together is not because I have any gripes or complaints about the process. It's mainly just because I think it could be useful for those of you that have a cancellation in the future and get stuck somewhere. It gives you a bit of an idea of what to expect, the process, the system they follow, and maybe just had to do a bit of back and forth with the customer service team, because there was some back and forth, which you will see. And let's jump into it back at the hotel in Sydney.
But just before we do, I want to clarify that this cancellation was for a domestic flight, so although an international cancellation may be similar, everything I talk about and information I provide is relative to a domestic cancellation.
Pretty much what has happened is tonight I was meant to fly, well, it's supposed to be like a two-leg trip. I was going Christchurch to Sydney, then Sydney to Adelaide. But what has happened is I have arrived into Sydney, and our plane that was supposed to be coming down from Brisbane, they've had some horrible weather up in Brisbane today. It was heavily delayed. I think it was about 2 or 3 hours delayed. And then what's happened is I noticed that the plane also went out onto the tarmac. I was watching it on like Flight Radar, and I could see that it stopped in its tracks while other planes were still going and taking off. And then I think I read on the boards that there was a maintenance issue. So yeah, the flight was eventually cancelled. So I spent a good 4 hours at the airport until finding out that it had been cancelled. So what has happened is we have had to go to the Qantas customer service desk, which is near gate 15 at the Sydney airport domestic, and go from there and see what the go is. Now, the plan is, what they said was, obviously with the Qantas app, it's going to come up with our new flights because we're going to be rerouted. I have already been rerouted, which I'll mention in a second, but I was a little bit concerned because I booked this flight through Amex using my $450 of Qantas, $450 Qantas travel credit. And I only had to pay $1.96 to get me from Christchurch, New Zealand to Sydney, then Sydney to Adelaide. Well, it's actually going to get me probably more value because I'm going to be going Christchurch to Sydney, Sydney to Melbourne, Melbourne to Adelaide, only for $1.96. So that's not bad value, is it? So there's a silver lining in all this. So, you know, not too many major complaints. It is what it is. I've missed work tomorrow morning, but, you know, that's another story. I've already had to inform people at work that I cannot come in tomorrow. So yeah, anyways, I'm going to get some rest. And then tomorrow afternoon, I have been rerouted from at 4 p.m. I'll fly to Melbourne. And then I think it's a couple hours later, I have a flight to Adelaide from there. And then I'm not going to wrap this video up until I get some of the money back. Because what's happened is generally with Qantas, they give you like a $200 hotel voucher. And anyone that knows Sydney, there's not many options available for $200, and especially when you're booking them on that night. So for example, the hotel I'm staying at right now cost me $500 out of my pocket tonight. I will say they did give me a $150 Uber voucher. So that got me to the hotel here. I'm hoping that I might be able to use it tomorrow to get back to the airport again. I'll find out. They did also say that they understand that, you know, $200 is not going to cover it. So if you find something for $500, they should cover that too. They said they should. They didn't guarantee it. So we'll find out, won't we? We'll find out what happens. But they did say though that, you know, nothing like around $1,000 or anything like that. So for $500, I should be okay, but we'll find out. Anyways, guys, I'm going to get some rest tonight, and we'll kick this video back off when we're making our way to the airport to go on this 2-leg journey back to Adelaide. And then we'll probably wrap the video up when we find out how much money I get back from all this. We'll see how we go. I'm really hoping I get my $500 back at least, because then, you know, if it does happen that I do get that back, at least, you know, the silver lining is, hey, it only cost me $1.96 for 3 flights. I'll see you tomorrow.
Now, after waking up the following morning, I decided I was pretty keen to get home, so I got in touch with Qantas and managed to get on an earlier leg back to Adelaide, but once again, still via Melbourne. Unfortunately, on this particular weekend, there was a big event in Adelaide on, so all direct flights were fully booked, and realistically, even if there were 1 or 2 seats available, they'll most likely be given to those with priority bookings or higher status levels. But I was certainly happy to be leaving Sydney just a few hours earlier and arriving back into Adelaide in the late afternoon, rather than later that night.
So actually, just out of curiosity, I thought I'd check some other airlines to see if I could book a flight to Adelaide. Because, having to do 2 legs just to get back home is a bit of a pain. But yeah, I went on Jetstar. That was booked out. I haven't checked Virgin, but I'm sure that's going to be booked out as well. I forgot, but it's the Adelaide 500, so it's a supercar race. If you're not from Australia, it's pretty much just like a car race which happens in the city each year. So obviously people are heading over to Adelaide for that, so bad timing really, isn't it? But yeah. Anyways, it's about 9:30 in the morning. I've got another hour and a half here in the hotel before I got to check out. I guess I'll just have to walk around for a while, but there's worse places you could be, isn't there? So who knows, I might just try and walk down to Darling Harbour or something, have a look around there, kill a couple of hours.
Now, one thing I should mention is that last night at the customer service desk, there were a lot of people waiting in line, as you could imagine, since it was a full flight over to Adelaide, and a Qantas 737 has 162 seats in economy and 12 seats in business. So after waiting in line a while, a customer representative came through the line and handed us these papers, which you'll see on the screen now. So from the top, this one reads, "Good evening. Today, we've had to cancel your flight QF749 from Sydney because of operational requirements. Now, under the subheading for local residents, if you're a local Sydney resident, we'll reimburse you up to $50 Aussie for transport to and from the airport. For non-local residents, to make your time here a little more comfortable, we're attempting to source a hotel room for you, however, availability is limited. If you arrange your own accommodation, meals and transport, we'll reimburse the following. Accommodation, $200 Aussie per room booked or local equivalent value. Meals and transport per person, $50 Aussie or local equivalent value. We will consider claims for all costs caused by the delay/cancellation on a case-by-case basis, including for higher amounts where reasonably incurred. Claims and receipts. If you need to make a claim, please keep your receipts and submit via, it looks like a link with a portal, Do you have travel insurance? This letter may be helpful to confirm details of your trip. The next part is if you have a connecting flight. Your new flight details will be available from our airport team tomorrow when you return. We'll do everything we can to rebook you on the next available connecting service. For separately ticketed connecting flights on other airlines, please contact that airline directly to make alternative arrangements. We're here to help. If you have any questions about your flights or if there's anything we can do to assist, please chat to our airport team. Alternatively, all your flight details are available on qantas.com/your booking or on the Qantas app if you've added your trip. For further information about compensation and refunds in the case of delay, cancellation or overbooking, please see our compensation and refunds on qantas.com, etc., and it's obviously just the website. Thank you for your patience. We look forward to getting you on your way soon. Now, there was one statement in here which I found somewhat untrue, where it says, to make your time here a little more comfortable, we're attempting to source a hotel room for you. However, availability is limited. So, understandably, with almost 200 people waiting in line, I think obviously trying to source hotels for, at least maybe half of the people, because, some people will be Sydney residents. Let's just say they're having to do it for maybe 70, 80 people. It's going to take a hell of a lot of time there at the customer service desk, especially when there's only 3 or so people at the desk there. And sure, there's probably other flights as well that have been cancelled. So I felt this was the most effective way, giving us these forms and getting us to do it ourselves. But possibly too bad for those that don't know how to book accommodation on their phones. But then again, I'm sure they could hopefully get some help and make some phone calls, these sorts of things. But overall, yeah, I think probably this was the best process at the time. It allowed me to get out of the airport. I'd already booked something by the time I'd left, jump in an Uber, and then I was at the hotel, 30, 40 minutes later. Now, I'm sure there's also going to be some people saying, what about your travel insurance? But for these sort of trips I do, when they're only 1 or 2 days, it's really not worth it when you consider your premium and then also your excess, which might be maybe $250. So let's just say all up, it's going to be $300 there. And if I'm going to be claiming back with travel insurance, you may only get a couple of $100, right? Whereas this way, we're going to be trying to claim back the full amount through Qantas, the $506 for the hotel, and then the meals, of course, as well.
But just so I don't drag the video out too long, I'll overlay some clips of myself making my way back to Adelaide here. But pretty well what happened was when I made it back to Adelaide, the following day I put in the claim for the accommodation and the food expenses. Now, I did that through the link I was provided on that document we saw earlier. It allowed me to provide up to 5 photos, which you can put in receipts. but it doesn't really allow you any space to put in any context, but there's like subheadings, or sorry, there's like selection drop-down boxes which you can select what they're for. So accommodation, meals, transport, etc. So you just click on whatever's relevant. Now it does also say that you will receive a confirmation email, which if you like, you can respond to or reply to with a bit of context if you wish, which yeah, I did. So I'll bring that up right now and I'll show you exactly what I wrote down. Yeah, just providing a bit of context for my situation, because I certainly felt that with the amounts, the limits that they have for the 200, and considering my accommodation was 500, I certainly wanted to make sure I got my point across and to hopefully help my case a little bit. So I figure what I'll do now is actually bring up the emails, or the back and forth that I had with Qantas. With the first one, pretty much just the sort of acknowledging email to say that they've got my claim and they're going to assess it, etc. And then the next one that you'll see now is the email that I sent as a reply to the first sort of acknowledging email, just providing a bit of context. So I'll read out exactly what I wrote to them. Hi there, I thought I would reply to this email with some context regarding the claim. Originally, I had a 2-leg flight from Christchurch, New Zealand to Adelaide, Australia via Sydney. I arrived into Sydney relatively on time, spent a few hours at the airport waiting for my Sydney to Adelaide leg, QF749. There was bad weather in Brisbane, so the aircraft Qantas were going to use for my Sydney to Adelaide leg was delayed up there and therefore delaying my flight also. Since it was going to arrive into Adelaide after the airport's curfew time, Qantas received a dispensation allowing the aircraft to arrive at 12:05 AM, about 2.5 hours after scheduled landing. 10 minutes later, the flight was cancelled. I spoke with the customer service near gate 15 at Sydney Airport, was provided a paper form, said to book a hotel, and Qantas will refund as I'm not from Sydney. She did say there'll be nothing available for $200, so most likely $400 to $600, and that should be fine, as there is nothing available at $200. She did say not to book anything around $1,000. I found a place for just over $500, and that was around the cheapest I could find that evening. I had breakfast the next morning with Uber Eats, and then a coffee at the airport before flying back to Adelaide via Melbourne. Best regards, Luke Crisp. So about a day or two later, I received a reply to that email. Now, just keep in mind, I have blacked out the reference number for my claim and also the customer service member's name there. I just don't really think that's relevant or unnecessary to show. So I'll just read out what they replied with. Dear Luke, thank you for reaching out regarding the reimbursement for your accommodation and meals expenses. Although safety is our main concern, we acknowledge the inconvenience caused by the delay and apologise for any impact on your plans. If you have paid for accommodation expenses yourself, we'll refund you up to 200 AUD per room and $50 AUD per person for meals. Transportation and incidentals in accordance with our policy and the letter provided by our on-site team. More details about this policy can be found. So obviously this part's just like a copy and paste sort of generic thing that they'd have. As a one-time exception, we will reimburse you as follows: accommodation 300 Aussie instead of 200 AUD in brackets there, just showing them how nice they are. Meals 1709 plus 19.99 blah blah. Overall $46.70 for the meals, so in total $346.70. If you are in agreement with the stated amount, please confirm your acceptance so we can move forward. We appreciate your cooperation and patience as we address this issue for you. So yeah, when I received this, I have to admit I wasn't really too happy about that accommodation amount for 300. But yeah, that statement where it says if you are in agreement with this stated amount, please confirm your acceptance. So that sort of gave me an idea. All right, there could be some leeway here. Let's do a bit of bargaining. They may not want to give me the $546.70, or sorry, it was probably actually more like about $550, including the meals with the accommodation. But I sort of worked out from here, all right, let's see if I can come back with something else and just make sure I really get across the point that, you know, I was told this will be okay. So I'll bring up the email I replied to that with. So, hi, the customer service team member's name. I want to make it clear that the customer service that evening at Sydney Airport were aware there was no accommodation available anywhere near the general compensation amount of $200, hence saying it's okay to book within the range of $400 to $600, and that should be fine. In brackets, they should be told not to say this if this is not the case. I'm out of pocket $550, which is a lot of money for accommodation and meals. However, it's the accommodation cost, which is my main concern, because had customer service not mentioned anything about covering us that night, I would have rather stayed at the airport.
Since I was told this will be okay, and I'm sure others have had the same struggle of trying to find accommodation, I would like to be covered for the accommodation cost, and that was a lot of money out of pocket. I'm a frequent user of the frequent flyer program, and it's probably somewhat unnecessary, but I did say and acquired 200,000 K points in the last year. I love Qantas as my national carrier, and I really don't want to have a sour taste as this is the first occasion I've had dealt with a cancellation from Qantas. So probably a little bit of an unnecessary statement on my behalf, but I just wanted to let them know that I do love Qantas. I do love flying with Qantas. So I just wanted, put that across. Don't worry, I know the 200,000 points, there's plenty of people that get millions. So I just wanted to put that in there just to show that, brand loyalty, I suppose you could say. I ask you to please reconsider the accommodation cost as that was unavoidable. I don't really care about the meals. Regards, Luke Crisp. Now, if we bring up the reply to this one here, it says, Dear Luke, thank you for your reply. After carefully reviewing your claim, we've decided to make a one-time exception and reimburse you the money incurred for accommodation. Yep, so they don't include the meals here, but to expedite the reimbursement process, please provide your account details through our secure case portal link that will be sent to you once your refund has been approved. Simply click on the link and complete the payment form. You will receive email notifications regarding the progress of your claim once the refund has been finalized. If you are a Qantas frequent flyer member, you can easily track your reimbursement through the request tracker in the Qantas app under Track My Cases in help and support. Thank you for your cooperation and patience. So yeah, after this, I just received a couple of other emails, which were more so just generic ones, which gave me certain portals so I could enter in my bank account details. I got the reimbursement of $506.64 in the end. So yeah, I was a bit happy with that. I wasn't overly bothered about the Uber Eats meal and the coffee at the airport. Wasn't too bothered at all. It was what, $46 or something like that. So I was mainly just happy to get back that accommodation amount. So from the time of actually putting in the claim to receiving the money in my bank account, it was about 1 week exactly. So I think that was pretty good. And like I said, this video, it's not a gripe, it's not a complaint. The main reason for putting it up, educational purposes. Hopefully if, well not hopefully, but if one of you go through the same situation in the future, at least you got a bit of an idea what to expect, at least in a domestic sense here in Australia. Anyways, it's almost at the end of the year now. This will be my 31st video I've put up this year. Thank you very much for those of you that have watched and commented on my videos, liked my videos, and obviously subscribed as well. I really do appreciate it. I'd like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. There'll be no more videos for me for the rest of the year, of course, but coming into next year, I've already got some plans and ideas, flights I'd love to go on. So they're all in the works, and hey, it's just about putting the money together, getting the points together, and hopping on those planes and making those videos. But I think that's just about it. Once again, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have enjoyed this video, or maybe you've had a similar experience, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to know what was your thoughts. For me, overall, yeah, I thought it wasn't too bad. Happy to get that money back. And I have had some other cancellation experiences with other airlines, but I've just never been stuck in a city before overnight. So yeah, once again, thanks for watching and all the best. I'll catch you on the next one of the new year. Take care. Cheers.